All right, good day, everyone. For today's lecture, I'll be talking about the Indus civilization. This is the third river valley civilization, which we will be discussing after uh, the Mesopotamian civilization and then the Egyptian civilization. And now we proceed to the Indus civilization. So, as a background, the Indus civilization was the first Indian civilization that had well planned cities on the banks of the Indus River. One of the characteristics of the Indus civilization is its well planned cities, and I'll discuss more about this later on. Now, the culture of India today has its roots in the civilization of the early Indus cities. So, when we look at the Indus civilization, in retrospect, it arose about 2500 BC. However, historians know less about its origins and the reasons for its eventual decline than they do about the origins and decline of Mesopotamia and Egypt, simply because of uh, their little knowledge on the language of the people living in the Indus River Valley, and their language has not yet been translated. So that is still the problem of historians today. They don't know much about the people of the Indus civilization simply because the language has not yet been deciphered, unlike the cuneiform and the hieroglyphics of Egypt. So, geographers often refer to the landmass of the Indus civilization, which includes India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh as the Indian subcontinent. So modern day India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, they are referred today by geographers as the Indian subcontinent. So geographically speaking, the area where Indus civilization is located is surrounded by the world's tallest mountains, the Himalayan mountain ranges to the north, and a large desert to the east, which actually help protect the Indus Valley from invasion. The mountains guard an enormous flat and fertile plain formed by two rivers, the Indus and the Ganges. Each river is an important link from the interior of the subcontinent to the sea. So, much of the lower Indus Valley is occupied by the Thar Desert. Farming was made possible only in the areas directly watered by the Indus River. So if you look at the area here, this is actually the Indus River, and this is also the Ganges River. So the Indus Valley is located here. Indus Valley civilization goes along the Indus River. So the Ganges drops down from the Himalayas and flows eastward across northern India. It joins the Brahmaputra River as it flows to the Bay of Bengal around this area here, while the Indus River flows westward here. The Indus and Ganges and the lands that they water make up a large area that stretches 1,700 miles across northern India and is called as the Indo-Gangetic Plain. So, like the Tigris and the Euphrates in Mesopotamia and the Nile in Egypt, these rivers carry not only water for irrigation, but also silt, which produces rich land for agriculture. The center of the peninsula is a high plateau cut by twisting rivers, the Godavari and the Krishna River, and it's known as the Deccan Plateau. The plateau is framed by low mountain ranges called the Eastern and Western Ghats, and these mountains keep moist air from reaching the plateau, making it a very dry region, the Deccan Plateau. So, seasonal winds called monsoons dominate India's climate, and it still dominates the climate of India today. It dominated the climate of India during the Indus civilization, and until now in the Indian subcontinent, it's still characterized by these monsoons. So, from October to February, winter monsoons from the northeast blow dry air westward across the country. So this is from October to February, that's winter season. So winter monsoons, again, from the northeast portion, blow dry air westward. Then from June through October, the winds shift and blow eastward from southwest, carrying moisture from the ocean in great rain clouds. So for the this is the picture to give you an image on how the monsoons go about. So if you look at the top portion, this is where the winter monsoon comes from. And again, as discussed in the previous slide, it blows from the northeast. So as the winds pass over the high Himalayas, they drop their moisture as rain. When these winds reach India, they are dry. Little rain falls during the winter monsoon. So but for the summer monsoon, it comes from the southwest. So as these winds pass over the ocean, the Indian Ocean, they pick up moisture. So this moisture falls on Pakistan and India as heavy rain. So that is the rainy season for India. So the environmental challenges that the people of the Indus civilization experience are three. First is the yearly floods actually spread deposits of rich soil over a wide area known as silt. However, the floods along the Indus were unpredictable, unlike the floods in Egypt. So they would never know when is the right time to plant and harvest. The rivers also sometimes change course. So it doesn't have a steady course, unlike the Nile River. And then the cycle of wet and dry seasons brought by the monsoon winds. The winter monsoon makes the dry season, and then the summer monsoon leads to the wet season, wherein moisture falls on Pakistan and India from the Indian Ocean, bringing heavy rains. Uh, it was also unpredictable. So if there was too little rain, plants withered in the fields and people went hungry. If there was too much rain, floods swept away whole villages. So these were the three environmental challenges of the people living in the Indus River Valley. So historians know less about the civilizations in the Indus Valley than about those to the west, like Mesopotamia and Egypt. They have not yet deciphered the Indus system of writing. Evidence comes largely from archaeological digs. There are no written documents. Well, there are, but it has not yet been deciphered. Although many sites remain unexplored and floods probably washed away other sites long ago. At its height, however, the civilization of the Indus Valley influenced an area much larger than did either Mesopotamia or Egypt. No one is sure, however, how human settlement began in the Indian subcontinent. Archaeologists and anthropologists merely infer or hypothesize that perhaps people who arrived by sea from Africa settled to the southern Indian subcontinent. Northern migrants may have made their way also through the Khyber Pass in the Hindu Kush Mountains in the northern part of India. Archaeologists have found evidence in the highlands of agriculture and domesticated sheep and goats dating to around 700 BC or 7000 BC. And around 4,000 years after, by 3200 BC, people were farming in villages along the Indus River. Hundreds of years after, by 2500 BC, while Egyptians were building pyramids, people in the Indus Valley were laying the bricks for India's first cities. They built strong levees or earthen walls to keep water out of their cities. Again, because of the flooding from the Indus River and because of the summer monsoon, which brought about heavy rains. When these were not enough, they constructed human made islands to raise the cities above possible floodwaters. Flooding was indeed a very big and perennial problem during that time. Archaeologists have found the ruins of more than 100 settlements along the Indus and its tributaries, mostly in modern day Pakistan. So most of the settlements of the Indus civilization are found in modern day Pakistan. And this is understandable because Pakistan used to be a part of India before. It just recently gained, uh, it just recently separated from India in the 20th century. So the largest cities of the Indus civilization were Kalibangan, Mohenjo-daro, and Harappa. Indus civilization is sometimes called as Harappan civilization because of the many archaeological discoveries made at that site, or the city of Harappa. And one of the most remarkable achievements of the Indus Valley people was their sophisticated city planning. They had a very good city planning, which is more or less as advanced as the cities uh, of 19th century of the 19th century. The cities of early Mesopotamians were, compared to the Indus civilization, a jumble of buildings connected by a maze of winding streets. In contrast, the people of the Indus laid out their cities on based on a precise grid system. Cities featured a fortified area called as a citadel, which contained the major buildings of the city. Buildings were also constructed of oven baked bricks cut in standard sizes. It is unlike the simpler, irregular, sun dried mud bricks of the Mesopotamians. So they were more advanced in terms of the creation of buildings in the cities. Early engineers also created sophisticated plumbing. There was already a plumbing and sewage system in the cities of the Indus Valley. These systems could rival any urban drainage systems built before the 19th century. So, compared to Mesopotamia and Egypt, the main difference with the Indus civilization is that their cities were well planned. There was sophisticated city planning, and their buildings were also well built, made out of oven baked bricks cut in standard sizes. Unlike the irregular sizes and the simpler forms of bricks, sun dried mud bricks of the Mesopotamians. So, the uniformity in the city's planning and construction suggests that the Indus peoples had developed a strong central government. Harappa itself is a good example of the city planning. The city was partially built on mud brick platforms to protect it from flooding. The street in its grid system were as wide as 30 feet. Walls divided residential districts from each other, and houses varied in size. So the people of the Indus civilization also responded to the environmental challenge, which was more on flooding, and they did this by building uh, more sophisticated buildings. They built it out of proper materials. They built a drainage system, a proper drainage system, and a plumbing and sewage system, which they also followed. So this is what makes it different from Mesopotamia and Egypt. Uh, Houses featured bathrooms where wastewater flowed out to the street and then to the sewage pits outside the city walls. And this is what Mesopotamia and Egypt really did not have. Harappan culture spread throughout the Indus Valley. And like the Egyptian and Mesopotamian civilizations, the culture heavily relied on agriculture. Like the other two river valley civilizations, also, the Harappan culture developed a written language. However, as I've discussed in the previous slides, it has been impossible to decipher. This is because, unlike the two other languages, linguists have not found any inscriptions that are bilingual. And the Harappan language is mostly found on stamps and seals made of carved stone, used for trading pottery and tools. So linguists today could not really decipher it because there are no inscriptions that are bilingual. They cannot compare it to other languages, and it's distinctly unique. For the people living in the Indus civilization or the Harappan civilization. So about 400 symbols make up the language. I could not include all the 400 here, but these are some of the examples as found in the picture. So these symbols have not yet been deciphered. Scientists believe that symbols like hieroglyphs are used both to depict an object and also as phonetic sounds. Some signs stand alone and other seem to be combined into words. And this is one of the reasons why uh, linguists could not really decipher the meaning of the symbols. As some of the signs stand alone, and others seem to be combined into words. So, the Harappan cities show a remarkable uniformity in religion and culture. The housing suggests that social divisions in society were not that great. Artifacts such as clay and wooden children's toys suggest a relatively prosperous society that could afford to produce non essential goods. There were also a few weapons of warfare found, which one can infer that conflict was limited. There was not much conflict during that time, and not much wars. Animals are also seen on pottery, small statues, children's toys, and seals used to mark trade items. The images provide archaeologists with information about animals that existed in the region. And these are some of the examples of animals. We have elephants and we have cows. There were also even goats, as based on the artifacts that were discovered by archaeologists. Uh, as with other cultures, however, the rulers of the Harappan civilization are believed to have close ties to religion. Archaeologists think that the culture was a theocracy. There was more or less a a solid union between the church, the religion, and government. But no site of a temple has been found. Priests likely prayed for good harvests and safety from floods, and those were really the main things that concerned the people in the Indus River Valley because of the environmental challenges that they face, especially on flooding. Religious artifacts reveal links to modern Hindu culture. Figures show what may be early representations of Shiva, a major Hindu god. So, until now, archaeologists are still trying to connect the dots, but so far they have found fragmentary evidences that would prove that there were early representations of the Hindu religion in the Harappan civilization. The Harappans conducted also a thriving trade with peoples in the region. They traded with the Mesopotamians, and the gold and silver came from the northern region in Afghanistan. There were also semi-precious stones from Persia or modern-day Iran and the Deccan Plateau, which were crafted eventually into jewelry. The Indus River basically provided an excellent means of transportation for trade goods, just like how the Tigris and the Euphrates were used as means of transportation, and just like how the Nile was used as means of transportation. So, the Indus River provided a link to the sea. This access allowed Indus Valley inhabitants to develop trade with distant peoples, including the Mesopotamians, and this brought about or engendered cultural diffusion. The people of the Indus River Valley learned from the Mesopotamians, and the Mesopotamians also learned the culture of the people from the Indus River Valley. Sad to say, however, all civilizations come to an end, and the Harappan civilization started to decline around 1750 BC as the quality of building in the Indus Valley started to decline. And gradually, the great cities fell into decay. Scientists before the 20th century have no answers as to why the Indus uh, civilization uh, suddenly declined or gradually declined. However, in the 1970s, satellite images of the subcontinent of India revealed evidences of shifts in tectonic plates. What does this mean? It simply meant that the plate movement probably caused earthquakes and floods, which could have altered the course of the Indus River. And scientists and archaeologists today infer that one of the main reasons why the Indus civilization decline was because of natural disasters like earthquakes and floodings, which uh, destroyed the buildings and the cities of the Harappan civilization. Some cities along the rivers apparently suffered through these disasters and survived, while the others were destroyed. Uh, Agriculture, which was the main source of livelihood for the people of the Indus civilization, may have suffered as a result of soil that was exhausted by overuse. This too may have forced people to leave the cities in order to survive. And then later on, by 1500 BC, the Aryans, who are a nomadic people from the north of the Hindu Kush Mountains, basically swept into the Indus Valley, that area of the Indus civilization, and uh, occupied uh, practically most of the Indian subcontinent. So Indian civilization would then grow again under the influence of these nomads known as the Aryans. And this was the time also where the Hindu religion developed and spread, not only in India, but in some in the different parts of the world, especially in some areas in insular Southeast Asia. And more about that will be discussed later on as we proceed to the next topic. So, again, in conclusion, if we really look at the Indus civilization, one, we really don't have a lot of evidences, especially written evidences, to really know much about the Indus people. However, we can merely infer from the evidences from the artifacts found by archaeologists and scientists that the Indus people already had their own system of writing, although it's still it still could not be translated today. It's very difficult for linguists to decipher it, as discussed previously. And one thing that makes the Indus civilization different from the Mesopotamians and the Egyptians is their sophisticated city planning. Again, they followed a grid system in their cities. It was properly arranged. The houses were more or less the same, using more sophisticated bricks, which were oven cooked, unlike the sun dried mud bricks of the Mesopotamians. But then again, they had to face a lot of environmental challenges, especially the monsoons, which led to and uh, and dry season and season with heavy rainfall. And they also faced uh, environmental challenges like flooding, uh, which was unpredictable, also quite similar to Mesopotamia. So all these environmental challenges needed a response, and they did respond to it by having more sophisticated buildings and having a sewage and drainage system and plumbing system, and even making man-made islands to elevate their cities. But it was again very difficult to go against nature, and nature took its course, and eventually there were numerous earthquakes and floodings that essentially led to the gradual decline of the Indus civilization. And that's what you have to really remember about this. But again, uh, there are some similarities, but the Indus civilization is quite unique in its own way, given the sophisticated city planning that arose, you know, which was way ahead of its time, especially the plumbing and the drainage system of the people living in cities like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, or Kalibangan. And all these cities are part of the Indus civilization. So there are still more things to learn about the Indus civilization, but until we get more evidences and until we really decipher the language used by the people of the Indus civilization, only then can we really understand how they were able to live, and only then can we really understand the culture, fully understand their culture. So that ends our discussion on the Indus River Valley and the Indus civilization or the Harappan civilization. Thank you for listening. For next meeting, I will have to meet you to discuss some of the pointers and things to remember before we'll have the midterm exam. We'll discuss the coverage online, and we will talk about what to expect for the midterms. And hopefully by then also I can remind you about the reporting and the groupings probably for that. There will be around 3 to 4 members in a group. So we will also do that on. We'll do that next meeting. So I'll just leave the Google link and Google Meet link, and we will meet uh, asynchronous. Have an asynchronous meeting uh, a synchronous meeting on Wednesday po. All right. So thank you for listening. Uh, if you can simply take screenshots of the slides or just review the discussion as I will be uploading. This will be uploaded in my YouTube channel, and I will be sharing it to you in the Google Classroom. All right. So thanks for listening, everyone, and God bless, and see you next meeting.